Canada is under attack, and we need to now think in terms of resistance internationally and here at home. We need to think of getting together as a people, having a unified vision for what we are as a country, resisting international tyranny. We have to be honest with the fact that we are now facing this regime that's pushing the world towards destabilization, militarily, economically, environmentally. We have to see the threat as it is, call a spade, get together as a people, be unified, believe in ourselves, defend our country, defend our interests, and have pride that we can resist this tyranny. All right, it's the Bad News Show. I'm the dude. Please hit like, share, subscribe. No weather talk today, talking about Canadian sovereignty. Everyone wants to know about what I think, so let's go. There it is. This is Bad News. My God. Anything can happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later. They try mopping this. Okay, we'll start with our top story so far. It's not really our top story, but we're going to lead into what Donald Trump is saying today about Canada. Last night, Ottawa Senators hosted the Minnesota Wild. They kicked their asses 6-0. I've never been an Ottawa Senators fan, just like I'm not a Justin Trudeau fan. Nonetheless, right on, Ottawa Senators, way to kick some ass. And there was some booing in the audience during the American National Anthem. We got to be honest, the woman who was singing it was terrible. It was a terrible rendition to begin with of a terrible song. However, the boos, it wasn't even that audible, really, in the television recording. Like, much ado about nothing in a sense. Like, some people booed, and I'm sure there's going to be more of that as resentment is growing. There's now talk about people saying, we don't want American flags at our hockey rinks. We don't want them at our border towns. We don't want them shown in our towns. The sort of small-time petty resistance, which is a good, I guess, to at least sort of galvanize public sentiment, but I don't think will have any real meaningful effect. But I want to show you the reaction to this sort of like, a couple hundred people booed, good on them. But I want to show you the reaction now from the American right today. If you don't know, End Wokeness is like one of the leading far right-wing Twitter accounts out there. And they're saying, Canadians are now booing our national anthem. This is war. Conquest now. Conquest now. That's the language that they are openly using. Conquest now. Invasion. War. They're gearing up for this rhetoric to make war on their allied nations. War like against us. Us here in Canada. That's what's going to come. So people are saying, well, if they're going to put tariffs on us, we'll put tariffs back. And the Americans are saying, well, if you put tariffs on us back, we'll tariff you even harder. So that leads us to, have to make larger decisions. Like, do we start cutting off the energy? And if we cut off the energy, then we can expect an American invasion. This is the truth about Canadian gun policy right now. We need to rethink that quickly. We need to start arming ourselves as a country. We need to start internationally reaching out to our partners and saying, we need help, just like European Union's willing to send ships and people to Greenland. We need to be really ready for a military response for what's coming, because this is all sort of the gearing up for what they plan to do next. We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Oh, it must be true because he used capital letters. Capital letters. Ooh. No, it's not true. They don't pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize us. There is no reason. There is no reason because it's not happening. We don't need anything they have. That's false. We have unlimited energy. Incorrect. Should make our own cars. That will take a lot of pain for you to get there in the long run. Good luck to you. And they have more lumber than they can ever use. That's completely false. They completely rely on our lumber here. And they don't have more lumber than they can ever use. Absolutely not. In fact, it's burning up at an unprecedented rate down there as well. Without this massive subsidy that doesn't exist, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. So what he's saying is, without them, we aren't a viable country anyways, which is completely false, completely untrue. It's an insult towards our history, towards our people, towards our tradition, towards our culture, towards what we've survived, towards what we've become, towards our own struggle with colonization and trying to make sense of that and where we are going as a people together, as a nation. Harsh but true, he says. It's not true. It's just harsh. That's all it is. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Like they're going to cherish us. Suddenly, they who are completely ignorant to our history, to who we are, to even our geography, Suddenly they're going to cherish us. No, I don't think that's really much the case. I mean, much lower taxes. Now, yeah, there's a little bit lower taxes in America, but when you look at what you get for the taxes you pay in Canada, we get considerably more in return, including health care, but a better social safety net on the whole. We aren't spending trillions of dollars on military to beef up a military industrial complex, maintain hundreds of bases around the world like the United States does. So, yeah, the people get a better deal. We pay a little bit more tax, sure, but we get a much better deal back from our government for it. Far better military protection for the people of Canada. The problem is the only thing we actually need military protection from is you. That's becoming painfully clear. It's becoming painfully clear that there's no one else in the world that is going to threaten our borders, that's going to threaten to invade us. We've never had to worry about that. That's why we keep our military fairly small. Occasionally, we've been involved in world events. Generally, I don't agree with our participation in it. I think that we've done what they've asked us to do lots of times. Mostly it's them asking for us to spend more of our GDP on the military to support their agenda around the world. So no tariffs. Okay, thanks, real Donald Trump. Let's look at his next deeply disturbing thing he's saying. The tariff lobby, headed by the globalist and always wrong Wall Street Journal, is working hard to justify countries like Canada, Mexico, China, and too many others to name continue with the decades-long ripoff of America, both with regard to trade, crime, and poisonous drugs. So, 19 kilograms of fentanyl they seized at the Canadian border compared to 9,000. Something crazy. It was maybe 90,000 kilograms out of Mexico. I mean, it's clearly crime and poisonous drugs and people running into America. It's not coming from Canada. We all know that's complete horse shit. It's just rhetoric being used to justify destabilizing our country so they can try to steal the things we have, so that American corporations can get their hands on our assets and take them and leave us to their whim, right? So those days are over. The USA has major deficits with Canada, Mexico, and China, and almost all countries. How can the richest country in the world be complaining about their economic situation? That's their own fault if they're not succeeding still at this point. So we're not going to be the stupid country any longer. You are being the stupid country. Currently, you're doing a much better job of it than you were even a month ago, actually. The world was somewhat stable in some ways until a month ago, and now we're in a situation where everybody is their nervous systems are being fried. So, yeah, I mean, really, the Trudeau government's already put like $1 billion up to deal with the supposed poisonous drugs over the border thing, to patrol the Canadian border more and whatnot. But I argue we need to patrol the border more, not for poisonous drugs, but for the potential of armed militia gangs out of the United States. And we've had this in Canadian history, not for a long time, but we've had that, like the Fenian raids of 1866, for example, where these armed gangs have come into Canada and tried to impose on us. So, I mean, the threat of terrorist attack from some crazy Americans, yeah, that's a real thing that we need to look at, that we need to consider the reality that these extremist views seem to always trigger extremist people to act in extremist ways. It's like a green light for them to go and do what you want. So make your product in the USA and there are no tariffs. So yeah, go ahead. That's fine. You do that. You make your product there. No one's saying you can't. Why should the United States lose trillions of dollars in subsidizing other countries? So we're going to get to the substance here of what's really going on. Pay a small fraction of the cost for what USA citizens pay for drugs and pharmaceuticals, as an example. These are all convoluted lies, and these people are completely aware of this. So here's this is crazy. This is complete fucking psychosis speaking. This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe. But will we make America great again? It will all be worth the price that must be paid. He's telling the people of America that they're planning to crash their economy, more or less. We are a country now that is now being run with common sense, and the results will be spectacular. But the thing is, common sense, if only a small percentage of the people think that that's sensible, then it's not common, Therefore, it's not common sense. But these are some of the dangerous justifications being used, and it's very much extremist rhetoric. It's not based on fact. It's taking details that are partly true, like maybe there's some trade deficits, and then twisting it to be some narrative which it's not. The speed at which the attack is going on democracy right now is completely unprecedented. On January 28th, we had this crazy federal funding freeze and worker buyouts announced. These worker buyouts that are completely unprecedented. What they're trying to say is, like you get a letter, you're a government employee, and it says, well, we think that you lean to the left. Therefore, if you want, you can take a buyout now and leave, or we'll fire you later. We're going to bully you out of your jobs and replace you with people who are partial to our politics. On January 29th, White House says they rescinded the funding freeze memo, but they didn't. Judges come forward this weekend and put a second injunction against this memo. So what's happening is funding is being frozen to all these organizations that are federally funded. It's causing chaos, whether it's things like Meals on Wheels, different government programs for people who are at the bottom. I'm sure a lot of people who are these working class people that voted for Trump are going to find themselves affected by these funding freeze memo. Yet the cognitive, the denial, it seems clear to me that a lot of people aren't willing to look at what is actually going on, So Trump blames the DEI policies for the plane crash on January 30th. And this is after, they've fired the head of the FAA, and that particular airport was chronically understaffed. And then he's trying to say this and that. Turns out the pilots of both aircraft were white men. DVI scrubbed on federal websites on January 31st. And Trump says tariffs are coming for Canada on January 31st. Much of Trump's activity in the last 2 weeks involved a slew of executive orders, more than any modern president has issued in their first 2 weeks. It's totally unprecedented. Over in Congress, 3 of Trump's most controversial cabinet picks had hearings before the Senate committee. These were completely incompetent and unqualified liars who just refuse to cooperate basically in any way, denying. It's like, did you work with this white supremacist? Deny. Well, look, here's a picture of you. Deny. That's basically how it went, right? Funding freeze and worker buyouts. Millions of workers received an email with the subject line, "A fork in the road," the same language Musk used when purging X's workforce when he became owner. It's very clear that a lot of this is coming straight from Elon Musk. So the freeze would not affect Medicare, Social Security, and other things, the White House said, but outages on websites and lack of detail or warning still cause chaos, and many of these funding freezes still remain in effect through the weekend. American allies are all being tariffed. The closest allies getting the most tariffs, and the ally who maybe they're doing economic deals with, but are in some ways in opposition. Meanwhile, Musk is suing Lego, Nestle, and a bunch of other brands for accusing them of an advertising boycott. So he broadened this existing lawsuit on Saturday to include several major brands, accusing more companies of illegally boycotting his social media platform. He's saying that they're boycotting me. It's illegal. It's like, you have to advertise on Twitter. You have to. Why aren't you spending your money here? So this is completely bizarre to me. Early on Saturday, Musk lawyers filed an amended complaint adding several new defendants, including Lego, Nestle, Tyson Foods, Abbott Laboratory, Colgate, Palmolive, Pinterest, and Shell International. The complaint alleges the World Federation of Advertisers was concerned that X, formerly known as Twitter, would stray from its brand safety initiative called the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, GARM. As a result, the suit said the group prepared a large-scale pause in advertising. So Twitter is not playing by the standards, so they said, well, we don't want to necessarily advertise with you right now. And that's what he's trying to sue them over. At least 18 advertisers are part of the GARM stopped buying ads on Twitter in the U.S. or globally in the weeks after Musk bought the platform in November 2022. or they substantially reduced their ad spending on Twitter. In turn, X claims it was deprived of billions of dollars of advertising. So you buy a platform, you make it go to shit, and then you blame people and go after them when they say, well, we don't feel like you are a stable platform for us to be a part of. It's like you're becoming increasingly this extremist website. And, we don't want to advertise with you. Like, I think they should have the right not to. Lawyers for X argue that in a competitive market, social media platforms should have the option to set their own brand safety standards. He can set his own standards that are optimal for his platform. But collective action among competing advertisers to dictate brand safety standards to be applied by social media platforms shortcuts the competitive process, he's saying. The seizure of the media, seizure of the methods of controlling the narrative, Musk was very much involved in when he bought X, when he bought Twitter, and people have been abandoning it in droves. And you can't deny when you look at the rise of Blue Sky and you look at what a nice platform still so far it is to be on, that people are distancing themselves from X, from Elon Musk, distancing themselves from Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And in return, there's this push to sort of dominate and control the media message, and that you'll find even within CNN, we're seeing like their most outspoken people quitting, and we're seeing, pressure being put from the White House on media organizations to keep people in charge. We have things like the Los Angeles Times owner saying that any headline that has the word, a negative slanted headline about Trump, has to go through him first, So this seizure of the media, and what you're finding is only people like, the Midas Network or Secular Talk or people like myself are really speaking up and speaking the truth about how much danger we're all really in. And people don't really want to face the truth, or they're incapable of it, is maybe the better way of putting it, because they've been living in this sort of nice bubble of the middle class life in Canada, and things are nice and good, and we should be polite, and we shouldn't talk about religion or politics at the table, and kind of that attitude, right? We've had this sort of false narrative that everything's okay, and we'll just not really look too far at anything too controversial. And now we're faced with extreme controversy that's being put on us. We're facing tough times. We're facing stress to our economic system in the future that's going to make life very difficult for people in Canada. And see it for the attack it is, and see it for the fact that their goal really is to destabilize us and make us beg to become part of the United States, and that can't ever happen. And it's nice to see things like David Eby banning U.S. alcohol from BC liquor stores. I mean, I don't drink anymore, so that doesn't really do me, it doesn't change anything for me necessarily, but at the same time, like a lot of these things you're looking at, it's like, well, buy Canadian. What we're saying is, support the Canadian oligarchy, not the American oligarchy. It's like, well, buy this kind of potato chip instead of that kind of potato chip. But in the end, the money's still going to this richer class, So, what we need to start considering is, how do we build a society that's more stable and doesn't have that despair and inequality the United States has, that would lead to the political chaos that eventually comes with it. Epic speech, they call Trudeau. It was good. I don't know if it was epic. It was good, though. I think it's stronger leadership than maybe we expected from him. I've always kind of seen them as sort of weak. But, the truth is this. We came out of COVID doing pretty well. We relied on ourselves. We came out of doing pretty well. And if we get serious about being together on this, we can come out of this pretty well eventually too. But, we have to be real about the fact that we are under attack. We are completely under attack. This is what's going on. They're not lying about it. They're not kidding about it. It's not funny, and I don't accept Canadians saying, well, Trudeau's made a disaster of the country. The country's not a disaster. Things have been pretty good. Things have been pretty good all in all. We don't have, people getting killed by the hundreds every day and gun violence unnecessarily. We don't have the levels of crime, of poverty. We have better education. We have better health. Yeah, there's some problems in Canada. Yeah, there's problems with each of the political parties. Yeah, there's structural problems with the system. Yeah, there's inequality. There are things that we need to still do to make our country better, to make it stronger, to make it less reliant on the rich, to make it less reliant on the United States, right? But yeah, good start. You have to call a spade a spade. Right now, when you have these far right wing narrative telling us like Trudeau's ruined the country and maybe we should become the United States, that's treason. That is pure treason. What you're doing. What you're doing is undermining our country completely. You know, I want to tell you a little story about my family history here and relate it to all this. So in Holland, during the time of Adolf Hitler, there was a party that was a National Socialist Party of the Netherlands, the NSB it was called. It was founded in Utrecht in 1931. The founders were Anton Mussert, who became the party's leader, and Cornelius van Gelderken. The party based its program on Italian fascism and German Nazism. However, unlike the latter, before 1936, it was not anti-Semitic. Doesn't matter, because it became so. I'll forego kind of the story of their rise, but the Nazi influence under 1936, under the influence of Meinoud Rost van Tonningen, the party became more radical and openly anti-Semitic. They supported the German Nazi Party, increasing divisions within his own party. The radicalization, though, led to decreased support for the party and strong anti-fascist reaction to the political parties from trade unions and churches. In the 1937 general elections in the Netherlands, the party gained only 4% of the votes. So they started to get punished by the voters because they're saying, well, we want to be, they're promoting this this politic that's not theirs, this German politic, and looking towards it as, ooh, and maybe it would be good if we were part of Germany, right? And the people punish them in the polls. Take note of this, conservatives, because you will get punished in the polls if you know. And I think Doug Ford is one of the conservatives who understands this very well. In Parliament, the NSB MPs showed little respect for parliamentary procedures and rules. Many NSB MPs were called to order for physical and verbal violence. They only gained 4% of the vote in 1939 as well. When the Second World War broke out, the NSB sympathized with the Germans and advocated for strict neutrality for the Netherlands. Sound familiar? Neutrality. Here's the Americans again. And I don't think the American fascism is the same as the Nazi Party, but no, we have to look at other fascist movements, and the most successful fascist movement of all time, probably, the most destructive one at least, was this. This is like, where can this road lead you to? Well, it can lead you to the Second World War, and that's the case still today. It can lead us to World War. So supporters of the party in the Dutch East Indies were interned at that time. When a Japanese invasion of the colony began, some of these were deported to Suriname and interned at Joden Savane internment camp. Soon after the Dutch defeat, though, on the 14th of May 1940, the imprisoned European NSB members in the Netherlands were set free by German troops. In June 1940, Mussert delivered a speech in Lunteren in which he called for the Netherlands to embrace the Germans and denounce the Dutch monarchy, which had fled to London. In 1940, the German occupation government outlawed all socialist and communist parties. In 1941, it forbade all parties except for the NSB. The only party you're allowed to have in the Netherlands is the NSB. And when the 14th of May happened, my opa was a drummer boy in the Dutch army still. Right? This is my family history. This is what the resentments in my family come from. Even when they came to Canada, my opa knew people who were in the resistance and knew people who were NSBers at the time, and some of them he hated and some of them he loved. My opa's still alive, so I shouldn't talk about him like in the past. He just turned 93 this last weekend. In 1940, the German occupation government had outlawed all socialist and communist parties. So the membership of NSB grew to 100,000, which isn't very much when you think about the actual population of the Netherlands still at that time. 100,000 is a very, very minority people who got involved in this extremism. But this very small minority played important roles in lower government and civil service. They took over everything. Every new appointed mayor by the German occupation was a member of the NSB, for example, on the national level. Mussert thought he would be made leader of an independent Dutch state, but no, the Germans weren't having any of that. You're the 51st state. Sorry, you're not an independent country. We don't care about your independence. Your viability of independence has ceased to exist. In court, In Austria, Nazi Arthur Seyss-Inquart was in charge of an occupation government. Inquart, he just hated it. People fucking hate Inquart still to this day in Holland. He chose to work with the remaining establishment as he realized the NSB lacked popular support and talented candidates for more important functions. So they weren't even talented or popular, but still they sucked up to the Germans and helped rat on people, helped the carrying out of the Holocaust, helped carrying out of the occupation, helped carrying out of German interests in the Netherlands at this time. Mussert had 5 meetings with Hitler in which he pleaded for an independent Netherlands, but he was unsuccessful. So this will be fucking Poy Lever someday saying, well, we did everything you liked and we kissed your ass. Can I be the leader of an independent country which kisses your ass? Nope. Inquart had proposed that Mussert should be made prime minister of the Netherlands, but he was only given honorary title of leader of the Dutch people. He was allowed to build a marginal state secretariat, but he was given no actual power. His influence in the party waned at the expense of Rost van Tongeren and other more pro-German members. So, eventually the extremist even pushed out Mussert. Mussert was an extremist himself, but people who were further to the extreme, right? On September 4th, 1944, the Allied forces conquered Antwerp, and the NSB expected the fall of Netherlands to come soon. On the 5th of September, most of the NSB leadership and many members fled to Germany, and the party's organization fell apart. Just a bunch of cowards. First sign of the Allies, run away and run into Germany, right? So what actually happened to people afterwards? You've seen those images of people in Holland getting their heads shaven. You've seen in that wonderful series, The Band of Brothers, where the women are having their heads shaven. And I said, what happened? What's going on with them? And the Dutch resistance leader says, those women slept with the Germans. And in such cases, maybe it was true, NSB members getting their heads shaven, or worse, getting shot and hung for capitulating and welcoming and helping usher in the German Nazi party that was so destructive, who, apart from their own brutality, their policies led to 25,000 people in Amsterdam starving to death in the winter of 1944. Brutal. You would do that to your own people. You'd be part of an organization that would do this. So the NSB started out as a classical fascist party which based itself on the principles of leadership. We need strong leadership. So it wants a fascist state with a compliant government, a fascist order and state control, everything tightly controlled by the state. It puts national interest above the individual, so, this is a good example for, the whole DEI thing, for example. It's like, we don't want gays in the military kind of thing, and it's like, well, your individual interests are, sorry, I lean this way or that way, and I want to serve my nation. No, your nation's national interest is not your interest. Our national interest is some insane politic that seeks to dehumanize you and blame you for the flaws in the system that are inherently there, present, or have been manufactured. So they put the national interest above the individual interest and the interest of social groups that had characterized Dutch society. So the culture of the Dutch people, even, that was a traditional Dutch culture. They put this their own interest above that. The party was anti-parliamentary and authoritarian. Its program, which was otherwise modeled on the program of German Nazi Party, initially lacked references to anti-Semitic or racist ideology, but under the influence of Tongeren became oriented towards the Nazi Party and took on anti-Semitic and racist ideas. It began to sympathize with the aggressive foreign policies of Italy and Germany. We see Canadians doing that now. Maybe we would be good if we were part of America. Well, they're just taking what's theirs. Well, they are the biggest predator on the block, right? So they demands were abolition of voting rights. Things that we're seeing in America right now. They had something like 4 million votes just thrown in the garbage in the United States during this last election. The vast majority of them were from poor black neighborhoods that were going to vote for Kamala. And, it's not unreal to say that the Trump camp probably stole the American election. Corporatism, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the mega wealthy really pulling the strings here, wanting to stabilize everything so that they can steal the money. A duty to work and serve in the army is part of this. Limits on freedom of the press. So they don't want free speech. They don't want open discussion about ideas and laws against strikes. We don't want workers to stand up and defend their own rights, right? The NSB, though, is against the current political structure of the Netherlands and the parliamentary democracy itself. And that's what we are seeing right now in the United States, absolutely. My old friend McDonald Stainsby, I've been friends with him and allies with him for a long time. Just to be clear with people, Hitler launched massive tariffs on wheat producers outside of Germany shortly after becoming chancellor. Trump used to read Mein Kampf before going to bed, according to his now dead ex-wife. Canada seems to be this Austria-like thing for him, or a Holland-like thing. A shared country of history, same language, and an easy mark, an easy target. We are a first world country and not at all a major victim of U.S. imperialism like countries like Cuba and Palestine and Venezuela or most of Africa have been. Or, look at Vietnam, you look at Korea, you look at the wars over the years, you look at Latin America, and you see what's happened in the Middle East. You see what American imperialism really is. We see there are hundreds of bases scattered across the globe, and we have a good view of what U.S. imperialism means. But that doesn't mean this isn't part of a whack job trying to emulate his hero, Adi Schicklgruber. Guantanamo is being turned into a military camp for new prisoners. It also flies right in the early days of the NSDAP, who immediately set up the first camps and loaded them with communists. Do you really want to welcome a country to come across your border who treats people like this? Do you think the chances that we will end up in that Guantanamo Bay or a camp like that isn't very, very, very high should things get to that further place that this is going, the direction that this is all leading towards, if it's not checked or stopped or resisted? I do not believe in Canadian nationalism, McDonald says, and I'm much the same. However, it needs to be understood that this is a ruling class of Turtle Island occupiers. They're attacking on what exists here. They're attacking our healthcare system, our reduced military spending, our better education. They're also attacking our story, our history, or our vision that we used to be told as kids. I was told when I was a young man that we were building this multicultural country that's going to be strong. We're going to have several languages. We're going to listen to people. And we're going to try to make the country better because of it. Everyone's going to have a chance to be heard. Democracy is a strong thing. And these are ethics that in the 80s were very strong. This is a vision of, where we're going as a country in Canada. And I think that vision is important, although flawed and maybe self-congratulatory. It's important to hold on to that vision as sort of like a shared goal that we once had for what we have as a people, where we are willing to go, what we're willing to be, and what our dream is, what our vision is. And vision's very important. We are not a stepping stone to a new American manifest destiny that extends far beyond Turtle Island shores. McDonald says he's been anti-imperialist since 1988. And in 1993, that meant campaigning against free trade without illusions in the ruling class of Canada. And the same applies today, establishing and participating on common front designed to fend off American onslaughts, which is not a joke. The newspapers of the 20s and 30s are littered with people saying, "Oh, he doesn't mean it." And tens of millions of people paid the price for it in the most catastrophic and horrific thing that's ever happened in human history, the Second World War. My friend John Clark says the impacts flowing from the tariff war will be considerable and will send shockwaves through the Canadian society. Like I said, people have lived in this nice bubble. Everything's okay here in Canada. And this will send shockwaves through people, much the way that COVID did. It was like, wow, we are, it's kind of like when a forest fire comes and nearly burns your town down and people suddenly realize that they aren't necessarily as safe as they thought they were, that there's this real danger out there that we have to always be aware of. So this will lead to even greater political volatility than exists at the moment. Every effort is being made to blur class distinctions and convince us to be part of Team Canada. And, I'm kind of giving that message too. So, take what John's saying to heart. I will. Based on supposed common interests with Canadian capitalists. Now, that's something I have already pointed out. It's like, just buy Canadian. It's like, well, don't give to those billionaires, give to our billionaires instead. And we have to look at this inequality is fundamental to the problem and always has been. So orchestrated patriotism, however, it won't do very much to conceal the impacts of the crisis that are being imposed on working class people to a vastly disproportionate degree. It's going to affect me and you at the bottom the most, as and then our solution is only, well, give what little money we have to Canadian corporations. So, buy local, sure, try to buy as local as you can, let's decorporatize Canada as best we can. As trade is deeply curtailed, job losses will result and tariff costs are passed on to ordinary consumers. The notion we're all in this together will fall apart quite quickly. And that is my concern. Working class people in Canada, the U.S. and Mexico will face the same challenge and need to take up the same struggles. Very big, important, and very big, important battles are shaping up to come in the days ahead, right? So, I'm here to tell you, make the revolution happen. The revolution's being televised right here on YouTube by lots of different people. Stay strong and realize that your social media is trying to sell you a narrative that isn't of the class we are in. We're the people at the bottom here. We're the working people. We're the bread and butter of this country. We're the ones who are going to pay the price for it. And we have to realize that at the same time, the richest of the rich in Canada will not suffer nearly as equally. In fact, they might even benefit from this supposed buy Canada, supposed, yay Canada thing. At the same time, though, we need to continue to maintain this sort of shared vision of where we are going to go as a people, and that let's look after each other and let's build a strong country that's independent of the United States. Let's build a strong social safety net. Let's try to empower more and more direct democracy in our country, and let's be willing to resist any attack on our sovereignty, on our freedom, on who we are, on the history we've tried to build, right or wrong as some of that history is. I'm not here to say everything is perfect in Canada, and certainly how we got here, there's a lot of things I'm highly critical of. Nonetheless, we need each other now, and we need each other badly in the days ahead, right? So stay strong, stay really strong, support your independent media, support each other, support, find ways as a community to get through this as best you can. You already did it once in COVID. You had a test run for how bad things can get. Well, this is like COVID where we're allowed to be social, but still, shortage maybe in the future on the shelves, right? So you may have to accept a lower standard of what you were used to eating all the time. Maybe oranges are going to become very expensive. So be it. So be it. We'll get through it. Put pressure on our leadership, put pressure on the political parties here to get on board with defending the country and standing up to Trump. Eventually this will end, but they are trying to make sure it won't. They're trying to make sure that he's president for life. They're trying to change the rules. They're trying to clamp down on, they're trying to make it so voting becomes harder and harder for people who are disenfranchised. And the end result is going to be this Republican Party that now has its stooges running all levels of government. That is a dictatorship regime, and it has to be resisted. And the party in Canada that's most trying to mirror them is the Conservative Party. Be aware they're a dictatorship regime. Okay, hit like, share, subscribe. Thank you for the supers. They really help keep me going, everybody. Love you very much. And we'll come at you tomorrow with some weather news. It's probably going to have to tell you that it's fucking cold. It's really cold. How cold is it here right now? Minus 18.7 at 3:42 in the afternoon. Fuck me, it's going to be chilly tonight. Okay, bye now.